Today's stream is about how overpowered or how broken the Parchment World style is, and what makes the Parchment World so versatile. We're going to go over what makes it so versatile and makes it so good for a lot of things like political maps, military, trade route maps, all of those things. So we'll go over that. Now for the roadmap, we're going to set this into 3 parts in today's stream. In the first part of the stream, we're going to talk about what sets the Parchment World style apart from the other styles. In part 2, we'll talk about how object shadows can do a lot of the heavy lifting on your map. And then in the last part, part 3, we're going to talk about how knowing just the very basics of color theory can really make your maps stand out from the rest. So that's what we've got cooking today. Let's go ahead and start with the basics. And that is what makes the Parchment World stand out from the rest. It's its simplicity. All right, there are 2 components to every stamp in the Parchment World style, and that is the line work and the clipping mask. Now the line work is the hex color is 311AOA. So if you need to know what that is, you can do that. Or there's also, I believe, if you need to know the line work of something, there is also, you switch over to color here. You should also, there should be, I wonder if we haven't added the magnifying glass yet, but hopefully we will add that soon if it hasn't been added already. So the line work, again, is colored. So you can change it. This is like really important that you should know. Like if I go over to the color here, if I bump up the saturation, you'll notice that it gets a little bit reddish brown, and I can change the hue. This is going to be super important, and it may seem strange at first, like why would I change the line work? But in one of the sections, we'll go over why this is actually really cool. All right, this other component is the clipping mask. That's going to be like your fill, basically. And a clipping mask is basically a mask layer that picks up whatever is on what's called your land brush. Right here, the world styles and a couple other styles have clipping masks, and the land brush is going to be the layer in which you would paint over the clipping mask. So if I go over to a texture of my choice, it doesn't really matter which one it is, maybe this bluish color, I have land brush set, and you'll notice that it's going to go right over the clipping mask. Now the clipping mask is important because if you don't have the clipping mask on, let me copy and paste this, put it right behind each other. If I turn off these clipping masks, you're going to notice that I can now see the line work of the stamp behind it. So you want to have your clipping masks on so they're not overlapping each other. That's something important. Something comparable to a Parchment World stamp would be something like making a shape with a brown stroke and a clipping mask fill, something comparable to these stamps here. And I think the other style that's comparable to this style, the only other one, is Classic Battle Map, which also has line work and clipping masks. So now because these two, there's only 2 components to here, you can paint them whatever color you want. You can use object shadows to fill them in with color. You can change the color of the line work. All of these things gives you a lot more versatility because of its simplicity. Well, you don't have those options with Fantasy World and Fantasy Regional, where the fill is all the different colors and things when you're the detail and the color that goes into those stamps. So it's the simplicity of Parchment World that makes it easier for you to make political maps, military maps, trade route types of maps. All of those maps are easier to make because of the simplicity that's implied with it. Because making a political map on a Fantasy World map means that you're contending with how busy the map is. A political map is simplified to where you only see the political boundaries and maybe some political important locations on the map. All right, so that's why Parchment World is really prime for those types of maps. All right, let's go over a little bit about some of the default settings that exist within this style here. So the default textures, the land, which is again right here, this land brush right here, is going to be called beige land. All right, that's your default texture. So if you're ever wondering, hey, what's the default texture for the Parchment World style for the land? Beige land. While conversely, with your water brush, look in the right panel here, your water brush, the default is Parchment Ocean. Because I see sometimes people are confused about, hey, what are the default textures? Because I made a map and I can't seem to find the default texture, and it doesn't come up when you go to recently used because it's on the default, right? So it's not going to show up as used. So if you're ever wondering what the defaults are, there you are. So that makes it easier. Now I want you to notice carefully something about the map and its default. I have all the default landmask effects, which you can find right here. If you go to landmask shape, you right click it, you see land style. You can turn on and off, enable and disable. But notice that this is the default setting here. That's important that you know the default settings, and I haven't done any other texturing. And what's great about the style is that you don't have to do a lot of painting. You can just immediately just start placing stamps down randomly, and you don't have to worry about a lot of painting, right? A Parchment World style Parchment has a ton of color. It's not as busy as per se a fantasy world map. So that simplicity makes it easier. So if you're in a rush and you need to make a world map, Parchment World is the style for you because you don't have to do a whole lot other than to placing stamps, and you don't have to do any texturing or coloring if you don't want to. So right out of the box, you can make a world map rather quickly because you don't have to worry about coloring in your biomes. You can, but you don't have to. You don't have to color in your biomes. You don't have to color anything. You could just leave it at this default settings and where the textures are, and it will work out just fine. So really, when you're putting together, if you're your first time putting together a world map, you should go with Parchment World because Fantasy World just has so much color and it's just very busy. And so it can be a little overwhelming at first. Again, this is the style for you if you want to get started. Let's go into part 2. We're going to talk about object shadows and how they can do a lot of the heavy lifting. Let's say that you do want to add color to the map, but you don't want to have to go through 50 different textures to do it. You can actually use object shadows to paint stamps. This does a lot of the work for you because color theory and trying to figure out what color works with what biome can be kind of confusing, especially when you want those biomes to blend together. And this still keeps the map simple, sticking true to the style. So the way that I do this is that let's start with some basic stuff. For instance, notice how my POIs, they look like, because there's nothing to distinguish them from the other stamps, they don't pop out, right? But what happens if you want those POIs to pop out? And the way that I would do it is I made sure that all the POIs are the exact same. So I'm going to go ahead and select one, go to select all from this set, and then I'm going to go over to shadow. In the left panel, you'll see shadow right here. Go and select that, go to custom object shadow. And I'm going to make the shadow white like this. I'll maybe bring the blur down a little bit, and then let's bump up that intensity. And immediately, you're going to notice that those POIs immediately pop out because they have a white shadow to it, right? So now your point of views pop out. That's great. What about painting other things? What happens if I want to paint trees a different color? I can do that too. Just select one tree. Doesn't matter which one it is. Go ahead and select all from this set. And then we'll go over to our object shadow, custom object shadow, and then we'll pick a color. So I could pick whatever color I want. If you can make them a dark color trees, you could bring the shadows down to where only the trees itself are colored in that greenish color. Or if you want some of the ground underneath of it to be green as well to represent grass, then just make the shadow bigger and bump up the intensity. And right now it looks like the forests are already filled in with a little bit of green. At least those particular trees have a little bit of green on it, already filling it up for you a little bit. So it's like it's doing the heavy lifting for you. Now you don't have to go in and paint in each individual tree a green color. You can just use the object shadow. So it's doing a lot of the heavy lifting and working for you. Let's pick some other trees that might be helpful. Let's maybe choose these more pine or coniferous looking trees. I'll select all from the set. I'll go back to shadow, custom object shadow. Looks like I've already added a shadow on here. Let's bring the shadow down to make it nice and green to show that darker evergreen like color. Let's bring that blur up just a little bit. We'll bring the intensity up, and you'll notice that it's darker and it pops out. See, that looks good. Now you don't have to limit it to just your trees. You can keep going. What about choosing some of your mountains? Let's just choose one type of mountain, select all from the set, and we'll go ahead and choose shadow, custom object shadow. I've already chosen a color here before, but you can see I can change it to a lighter orange color, a brownish color. Maybe there are these more greenish mountains. Maybe they're this red color mountains. If you want a more natural color, go more into the orange and brownish colors. Let's go maybe a little bit more into the red, bring it down to the brown here. You could also choose this similar colors right here, which works out well. Maybe I want to go with this dark brown color. And you can go ahead and bring the blur up or down. I'll go ahead and bring it down a little bit, and we can get some of our brown color. See how now those mountains have a nice brown color there? Let's keep going. Let's choose another mountain set. Let's go ahead and select all from this set. We'll go to Object Shadow. Let's go to here, Custom Object Shadow. I've already added a little bit of a brown color there as well. And then we're going to do it to every single stamp, basically. So because if you're going to do color one type of stamp, one stamp with an object shadow for continuity, to make it to where it's going to look correct and not look weird, you probably want to select every single stamp is probably going to want to have a object shadow on it. So let's go and select some hills. We're just going to go through each one, select all from this set. We'll go back over to our shadows, custom object shadows. Looks like I've already chosen a green color here, but we can change it to where I want the green to go here, or push it out further. Bring this one, maybe I want to make it a more, this color green, maybe I want to make it darker. I can make those choices. So now I've added some of that. Let's keep going. Let's add some more hills. I see a bunch of hills. Select all from this set. And then we'll go to shadow, custom object shadow. You notice I've already added that. Same thing here. Let's go ahead and select any trees that I might have missed. It looks like that tree already has the shadow on it. Let's keep going here. Oops, some dunes. Go with these ones. I'm going to select all from this set. Go to shadow, custom object shadow. I've already added yellow, but you could choose an orangish color as well. Like maybe I want to have a more orangish color. Now, when you're doing, like, you want to color an entire biome, you want your object shadows to be larger, right? So let's go select all from the set. You see what happens when I bring the object shadow down a little bit? It only gets closer to the line work and it doesn't fill up that whole biome. So bringing that shadow blur up quite a bit to making it pop out will really get that orange color. So it looks like it's covering in that whole biome. So that'll be helpful. Same thing here. Let's go ahead and grab these ones. Right here, we'll select all of this from the set, and we'll do the same thing over again. We'll go with custom object shadow, and you notice that I added an orange one. And so I'm just going to do it with pretty much every single one. So let's choose all from this set, go to shadow, we'll go with custom object shadow, a little bit of brown there. There's probably a bunch of other stuff that I missed. Yeah, Shy Red Fox, absolutely. It's just, I mean, look how far we've gotten already. Now you can still paint on top of it because sometimes there's not enough stamps to fill in the negative space to where they will not fill in your biome or whatever. So you might have to do some minor texturing, but you don't have to. It just depends. And I'll show you a quick way to fill in the rest of the negative space that will make it look good without it looking like, well, it just seems off because not everything is colored. I'll show you that trick. But let's finish filling in all the stamps. First, select all from the set. You could apply this to Classic Battle Map as well, and I have before. It's at a different scale. Remember, we talked about scale, where you have large scale, small scale. Because the fantasy world is at such a small scale, the stamps are smaller, and so the shadows fill up those stamps easier. But when you have the classic battle map style, the stamps are quite a bit larger because they're at a larger scale, so they're harder to fill up with an object shadow. So there is that slight caveat that the scale actually impacts how well object shadows work with each other. So that's kind of some important little caveat there. And maybe we'll do an entire stream about the classic battle map style as well. That's going to probably come up in the following month because that style is also overpowered using the same logic that we're using here because it has the same concept, the line work and the stamps. All right, let's keep going. we're going to go ahead and do the majority of the stamps here just so you can kind of see what it looks like overall when it's done. And then I'll show you the little trick to fix that negative space there. So let's go ahead and go over this. We'll go over to our shadow here, custom object shadow. Brown, let's go ahead and bring the blur down a little bit, make sure those stick out. Same thing here. Select all these. Oops, select all these from the set. That was fun. Let's see here, shadow, custom object shadow. And let's go ahead and change up the shadow just a little bit. There we go. Give it a little bit more reddish, brownish color. And I think there's a couple more that I might have missed. I think it's these ones right here. So let's go ahead and select these, and I'll make these maybe green. There. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's go to shadow, default. Oh, not the default. Let's go with custom. We'll choose a greenish color. Bring the offset down and bring the, not the offset, but the blur down a little bit. Get that greenish color. There we go. That looks better. And we'll go ahead and take a step back. I think we got most of the stamps, but you get the general idea. Now, when you have a lot of negative space, and by negative space, I mean space that's not occupied by stamps. You notice right here, there's a lot of negative space right here, a lot of negative space in here, and it looks like the map is incomplete, right? Because there's so much negative space. In other words, it almost makes it look kind of lazy because there's so much negative space. The way that you can fix that is not too difficult. If you go into the catalog and look for a overlay texture, overlay means supports alpha or transparency, there's something called grass right here. If you have a hard time seeing where it is, just go up here and go to show names, and then you'll be able to see it. Now this grass texture, again, supports alpha, which means transparency. And what's great about this is that you can fill in negative space without impacting too much of the map. So if I go over to land brush right here and just start putting in the grass, obviously not right here because this is more where this mesa is, but right where the grass is, right where the trees are here, let's put it here, right along here, you'll see some good grass texture all along here. Just take this grass texture, just really fill in those negative spaces. And what that will do is it will fill in that negative space without it making look like it's just completely empty or devoid of any texture. So I always do this a little bit of grass in these negative spaces to fill in so it doesn't look like it's an incomplete map. All right, let's go ahead and add these in. This little horn right here needs a little bit of grass. Let's put some grass in here. All in these negative spaces, and then we'll zoom out and then we'll take a look at it, and I'll show you how much that impacts the map, having these overlay textures like this over in here and here, really get these to pop out. Now just know that the stamps are clipping masks, so I can accidentally paint this grass also on this mountain right here. So you have to be aware. Think of it as like a game of operation. Don't accidentally touch that mountain there, right? So that's really my suggestion, is that just be mindful that you might accidentally paint some grass on top of one of your banners that has text on it, right? So it's important to kind of keep that in mind. Now I'll go ahead and do the last bit of sections here, and then we'll take a step back and we'll go to part 3. And I will say that you can use object shadows as well on other styles. Like you can make the shadow of a mountain with an object shadow. You can create clouds. Remember, mountain ranges, mountains are so large that they create their own weather. So you could use a white object shadow to create clouds above the mountains. You could use a darker brown or black color and then offset a little bit to create a shadow of the mountains. There's a lot of things that you can do with object shadows outside of the Parchment World style. Just kind of keep it in mind. And you'll notice here that those negative spaces now have a little bit of grass, that overlay texture, which makes it look a little bit more complete. So there's a lot that you can really do with this. All right. Okay, let's go into part 3. I think you overall got the idea about the, oh yeah, let's also change the background, change the ocean color as well. Let's go back to water here, and we're just going to go ahead and fill. There we go. And now you have quite a, let's also mess with the, let's also mess with mask effects as well. We want to complete it because the objective is to create several different maps or a couple different style of maps. So we'll go with this one real quick. I'll go over to the land style here, and let's change a couple things. Let's change that stroke to white. That white is going to cause the land to pop out because that white pops out. Let's also turn off our ripples. I want to make it separate from the last style there. Let's also make our outer shadows a little bit more prominent by going with our, oopsie, not outline here, outer shadow. Let's go with this. We'll bring that blur out a little bit. Distance, bring the intensity up a little bit. Go with our white color. There we go. We'll bring our intensity down. There we go. That looks good. And now, and then also let's increase that inner shadow just a little bit as well. We'll do one more thing. Let's increase that inner shadow to make it look like it's kind of going down a little bit. So I'm going to expand this, increase the distance a little bit more, and then bring the intensity up just a hair. Oopsie, that's a little too much. Let's go bring that down just a little bit more. A little bit more. There we go. Now I want you to notice the contrast. I'm using a lighter color, white, to represent the outer shadow, and a darker color that represents the inner shadow, and that creates contrast. Light and dark contrast against each other, causing that mountain or causing the land masses to pop out. So now we've made we've changed the map. We haven't changed anything like the stamps or anything, but we've added color without having to paint a single texture outside of that overlay texture. So this is a great way to make a map quickly. I've made a couple maps in this kind of style. It's a real quick way. The only thing that's going to take a long time, obviously, or take longer, is just to put the stamps down. After that, it's kind of easy. You won't have to go through 1,000 textures to paint. You can let the textures or the object shadows do the work for you. Okay, let's go into part 3, where we're going to cover a little bit about color theory. This is going to be important, okay? Knowing just the very, very basics of color theory is really going to help to make your map stand out from the rest, okay? Let's first talk about neutral colors. And what I mean by neutral is that they work with any other color, okay? Black and white are neutral colors. You'll notice that a lot of the text has black or white because black and white are neutral colors. So no matter where you place the text, the color of the text won't clash with whatever it's labeling. So black and white are neutral colors. You're going to see them the most with your text, but we can apply some of our knowledge about neutral colors, not just to the text, but to how we want to paint the map or the text or the stamps. Now, black and white equal gray, so gray is also a neutral color. And then there's also brown, which is a neutral color. Now, there's other neutral colors, but those are the 4 basic neutral colors. Keep these in mind. These are going to be important because if you want to create color palettes to make your map more stylized instead of a robust color palette, you can use neutral colors to balance out with other colors. Now, the other colors are basically going to be, let me go over here real quick. And what we're going to do is there is something called primary colors. And those primary colors are going to be your red. Oopsie, is this not popping up here? Let me just make sure that this is popping up. Oh, I'm on the wrong layer. That explains that. My mistake. Let's go to color theory. Here we go. So red is a primary color, blue is a primary color, and yellow is a primary color. And the reason why they're primary colors is because, you guessed it, they do not need other colors to mix to create this. So you'll notice that these colors on the color wheel create a upside down triangle. So those are going to be your primary colors. Again, they're primary colors because they do not require mixing to create it. Now, if we flip and do the opposite, you have secondary colors. That means 2 colors combined to create another color. So you have your purple or violet, which is created by mixing blue and red. You also have your green, which is mixed by creating blue and yellow. And then you also have orange, which is mixed by creating yellow and red. So by mixing the primary colors, you can get secondary colors. So that's going to be super important. And the last thing I'll mention, because color theory is intense, and we could go over this in an entire episode, but I don't want to go too far into it. Let's talk about complementary colors, and that means colors that complement each other. And the ones that complement each other are going to be red and green. You ever played World of Warcraft? Red and green are complementary colors. What about blue and orange? Those are complementary colors. There's also purple and yellow. These are complementary colors. And what we can do is we can mix two complementary colors like purple and yellow and mix it with black, white, gray, or brown. So when you're knowing a little bit of this knowledge means that we can now choose a color palette that will work together without contrasting against each other too hard and looking out of place. So let's go ahead and pick a couple colors that we want, and then we'll also make a couple versions of this. So why don't we choose two neutral colors, our black and our white, and then we'll choose a primary color like red here. Okay, so black, white, and red are going to be a part of our color palette. And remember, red will work with black and white because they're neutral colors, right? Just as if I used gray and white and red, it would still work because gray is a neutral color. So let's go ahead and do that color palette first. Let's go ahead and remove these, and we'll go ahead and turn our color theory off, and let's go. Oopsie, there's our red line right there. Oopsie. Let's do a couple things. First, we're going to select every single object on the map, and we're going to turn off the shadows. So let's go ahead and go to shadow. Oopsie, am I only touching stamps here? Am I on the right thing? Great. Okay, let's see here. We have all the shadows. None. There we go. Great. Okay. Now we picked our colors, red, black, and white. We need to decide what's going to be black, what's going to be white, and what's going to be red. Let's go ahead and pick that. Let's have the land be black and the white be the water. And the reason why is because those two contrast, light and dark, right? So let's go do that first. Let's turn off our land mask effects as well for now. We don't need them on. Let's turn them off. Let's start first with our black. We'll choose a color. And we're going to put this in our land, and we're going to go fill. Now, right now, you're not going to see a whole lot, but that's okay. Let's go choose white, and this time we'll choose our water brush. Fill. Perfect. And you notice that the black and the white work perfectly because, again, they contrast and they're neutral colors, so they're not going to have too much trouble with each other. Let's go to that next step. Since we still have white, let's continue using white by making the stamps white, because if the land is black and we make the stamps a darker color, you won't be able to see them. Hence why you can't see the stamps very well. But if we select all the stamps and change the color of the stamps, let's go over to our tweak colors. We're going to desaturate, bring our brightness up, and bring our contrast all the way down. And now you'll notice when we zoom in that you indeed have your stamps, which you can see quite well because they're white against black, causing contrast and yet not clashing because they're both neutral colors. All right. So now let's go into the next step. We've already chose black and white. What about red? What should be red? And how should we go about that? There's a couple ways that we could approach the red. We could have all of the text be red. That's one thing that we could do. Let's go ahead and choose red as our text. So you can see that that red works. It could just be the text. Or if you want, we could also make the stamp itself be red. So let's just go ahead and select one from the style. I'm going to go ahead and select all. I'm going to go ahead and select all. Let me go up, select all from the set, except this one, and I'm going to delete them right away. Okay? Now, here's the thing. If you want to paint this stamp a different color using the clipping mask, there's a bit of a caveat problem that you're going to come up with, right? If I want to paint this in, let's go back to land brush here. You'll notice that I accidentally paint over the land itself. So what we'll have to do instead is that we're going to have to fill this up with a color of our own. So what's really cool is you can turn off clipping masks, right? Let's also change the color back to black so I can at least see it. So I'll bring that brightness back. Now I can at least see it. We'll change that saturation to black. And when you're filling in a stamp with a fill shape, you want to make it nice and big. Nice and big on purpose, so that way when you're filling it in, you won't go outside of the line work. So what you'll do is we'll first choose a shape. We're not going to have any stroke. We're going to choose a fill, and we're going to choose a color. We're going to choose black. Now, if that red is too bright, you can bring the red down a little bit to a darker red. And then you're going to take your pen, and we're going to zoom in real close, and we're just going to follow the line work with the pen. I'm using a mouse, so it's nice and easy. Like this. Let's go ahead and fill this in. Oopsie, let's go down and fill in the line work here. Like this. And what's really nice is that you only have to do this to one of these stamps. You don't have to do it 8 times, because all you can do is just good old copy and paste, because you don't want to give yourself more work. So we'll go ahead and we'll fill this in like this. Remember just to follow that line work so that way it stays within the line work. Let's go all the way into here. It only takes about, probably takes about a minute or two to fill the whole thing in. It's like a game of operation. I'm trying not to go outside of the edges here. These longer line works work great, so let's do that. This one, we're almost there. We're super close. Let's go ahead and zoom in a little bit so I can see a little bit better. We're so close. There we go. We'll press enter. We'll go to add. There we go. And then we're going to push this down a layer beneath it. Then I'm going to select both of them, create group, call it banner. And now I can take this stamp right here. Let's go up one layer. And then I'm going to go ahead and place that right there like that. And again, what I want to do is I'm going to use, again, my neutral colors, black and white, a black outline and a white fill text color. And then I can just copy and paste that and just put that underneath every single one of my text like this. And then we'll zoom out and I'll show you what it looks like completed with those colors. Where are we at for time? 35. We're doing all good so far. Okay, let's go ahead and place every single one of these. And I see you there in the chat, first time chatter, and I will look for you in Discord, by the way. Thank you for shouting out. I appreciate it. Okay. We're going to go ahead and place all these. And then you'll get to see what it looks like. Oop, I see one here, here. There's a lot of them here. There's another one. That looks good. Let's go over here. There's only probably about 4 or 5 left, maybe. I got that one. Oop, I missed one here. There's one. Oh, got that one. Let me see. Did I miss any? Oh, there's a couple here. A couple here. All right, let's take a look at it. Did I get everything? Let me make sure I didn't miss any text. That looks good. Okay. All right, that looks good. All right. So when you take a step back, you'll notice that because we chose 3 colors, a tricolor palette, and it all worked out. Our red does not clash with black and white because black and white are neutral colors. We've made the text white, so it will match with the black and the white. And so when you put together these color schemes, you can come up with a whole series of styles, color palettes that makes it different. Why don't we do one more and then we'll call it good. Let's go with choosing complementary colors this time. Let's do that. So let's go back to our color theory thing here. And we've got yellow, purple, blue, orange, red, and green. Why don't we end up going with blue and orange, which, because yellow is also made with orange, you could also make it more on the yellow side as well, because it's a part of orange, right? Red and yellow makes orange. So if you want, you could do blue and yellow if you wanted to, or purple and yellow. So let's maybe try out a complementary color and see what it looks like on the map. Okay, let's do our let's do purple yellow or blue yellow. I think both will work fine. Okay, and also mention that the colors are different. Yellow is a warm color, Warm colors are like red, orange, yellow, while cooler colors are like green through blue. Those are cooler colors. So the cool and the warm color will contrast well against each other. So let's start first with our blue, and we need to decide what is going to be blue on the map. And there are a couple options here. What about making let's start with blue first. Why don't we make the land, let me think for a second. This is going to be an interesting one. Why don't we make the land yellow, the stamps blue, and then we can talk about our neutral colors and how they'll fit into the stamps and stuff. So let's go through that. Let's choose first our color. We're going to choose yellow. And you can go into the range of oranges or yellows. I think both work fine. That's up to you. I'm going to bring it more into the orange. And then we're going to go to our land brush, and we're just going to go to fill. And now you notice the contrast, right? A lighter color of land doesn't contrast against the lighter color of the mountains. So now we'll have to go back, hit all the mountains, hit all the stamps. We'll go to color here, and we're going to go bump the saturation all the way up. We'll bump the contrast back to its default here. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. You can see already that even that looks okay, just with that color alone. But let's select all of them, and then we'll choose that blue color or purple, whichever one you all think works better. I'm fine with either one of them. Let's go with bringing that contrast up, and you can see the blue right here works well with that yellow there, right? Now there's also, we mentioned that there's also a purple, so let's try that as well. Let's select all, and then maybe we'll go to the more purplish side. So if I go over here, you'll notice that even the purple or violet also works with the yellow. So you're starting to see how color theory can actually really, really help. What about doing the same thing? Let's keep messing with color theory a little bit. Why don't we go ahead and mess with the land mask effects and see how we can apply those colors to this. So let's go with maybe the stroke. Instead of it being white, because it's a bright color, bright warm color, why don't we go with blue or purple? And what's really cool is you have that eyedropper here. Let's just go zoom in to some of the line work right here and just select the color from the line work. And then if I jump over to the mask effects over here, you'll notice that I have a blue, that same color on the outline there, right? So kind of helpful when you're putting that together. What about also, let's go ahead and maybe change some banner stuff. What I'll do is I'll go ahead and select all groups. We'll select all these groups here. Let's go ahead and delete every single banner except one. Oopsie. Every single banner but one. Not that one. We'll delete that. And now we have this banner here. And now that we already have this banner, what's really cool is we can go open it up and we could say, okay, well, let's go ahead and choose maybe that same blue color again. So let's choose this, use that eyedropper, go right over to the mountain over here or whatever this color is you want, fill that in. And then here you have that blue color. And if I just place that right over there, again, that neutral white color, let's just go ahead and copy and paste this like this. Now you can do the opposite too. Check this out. Let's try this. Let's make the fill of it white while making the text. Let's go ahead and select this real quick. Let me undo this real quick, delete this. Let's change the text a little bit here. Let's change this color to white, a neutral color. And then when I select this text right here, let's make it so it's only text. If I select this text, turn the outline off, I don't need it, go to color, go to the eyedropper, go to that blue color, and then I can also do it this way as well. So it works both ways. I personally find that the darker blue works better because the land is a lighter color, and so the blue of the banner is a darker color, will stick out. While the white, being a neutral color, it still works, but it's lighter than the darker blue. So learning just a little bit of color theory can really, really push your map quite a bit. And it doesn't have to be a tricolor. It could be any number of colors that you want, right? We could have used complementary colors on top of 5 or 6 or some of 3 or 4 neutral colors, all right? So just understanding just the basics about color theory will make your map pop out from the rest, because most users, when they make a map, they're probably going to stick with the default textures. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's okay, because Parchment World is a quick, easy, on-the-fly style that really, really helps you to make those maps when you're in a rush, because I find it helpful for that reason. So, but because it's such a simple style, you can mess around with all these settings, object shadows, the color of the line work, tri-color theory, or triadic tri-colors. You could use just complementary colors, mixed neutral colors, whatever you want. Like, we could have made this whole map landmass brown, and then we could have used white for the stamp color. So there's a lot of different things that we can do to make your maps pop out, because what happens is that because there's so many maps out there, we get used to seeing a lot of the default stuff. And so if you really want your maps to pop out from the rest of the maps that are out there, this is the way to do it. Mess around with object shadows, mess around with color theory, and you can really make those maps pop out, because this yellow color, it's just such a flat yellow color. It just pops out so much, right? Now, I want to mention one last thing before we wrap it up, and that is using filters. Because if you notice here, you might not like the flat yellow color that you see. You see there's no artifacts or anything down here like this. And so what we can use is we can use filters to create some artifacts to make the map look more parchment. So I'll go ahead real quick and just go add a layer, filter layer. We're going to go to texture filter, and we're going to go ahead and choose some filters that work really well. We can start with old paper. Let's go to overlay, and we'll go ahead and mess a little bit with bringing the opacity up. There we go. And we'll choose the repeat here. And you'll notice that there's some artifacts on the map. See, you can see a little bit of grain, a little bit of artifacts. That makes the map not look like a flat yellow color, right? That's helpful because it doesn't look like it's complete. But we can keep going. Let's try maybe a just regular grain. We can bump up that size, get the opacity, and you can see that the texture, that yellow texture, has now become more granular, which is what you would kind of expect with a parchment map, right? So using textures is very, very, very helpful. We can go through a series of textures in the Parchment World style that are very, very, what is also paper tear. We can use this paper tear to create some white artifacts, noticing that there are some artifacts here. That's going to be helpful. We can also use other things like using a tattered filter. Let's go ahead and change this blend mode to normal. There we go. It should be set to stretch. There you go. Another great choice is using these tattered filters to give it a more parchment look, making the map more interesting. So using filters is an important deal, because when you are dealing with flat colors, you'll notice that it is exactly that. It's flat, right? And the artifacts on the map help to make it not look like your map is so flat. So it's kind of important. Use filters to add granulation, to add stains, to make it look more parchment. Well, that's it. We went over what makes the parchment style stand out from the rest. We talked about object shadows, and we also talked about a little bit about color theory. Well, thanks everyone. I found this to be incredibly helpful for myself. I hope you also found it helpful, and I look forward to all the streams that we have going on next month. So thank you so much for watching. Please stay safe and healthy, and merry map making. Have a great weekend, everyone. Bye.